It's time for an updated combat overhaul, and this time I will be showcasing the entire setup that I'm personally running, giving spotlight to all mods used and individually guiding you through it, so you're able to fully replicate the entire setup you see in the background. The main focus will be third person, but without neglecting the first. The setup will be flashy and in certain instances over the top, but by utilizing different mods, we'll attempt to balance things out as much as possible by introducing drawbacks to all actions performed. A quick note about the goal of this overhaul. You might say, this looks nothing like Skyrim, and that's because that's the intention. I have over 6,000 hours in Skyrim, have achieved everything there is to achieve, and when I mod it, I like to experiment and have fun with variety of features. Additionally, the combat overhaul will not aim for realism, but rather fantasy-based combat that emulates features found in action combat games like Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and even Elden Ring. Let's talk about why this setup is based on MCO or BFCO. These two frameworks tie motion data to animations themselves, meaning that the movement plays in unison with weapon movesets. This is the feature that most modern RPGs utilize, even games like Fallout 4 and Starfield. So, with MCO, we will be introducing attack commitment and completely remove the disjointed and awkward movement during weapon animations, a phenomenon known to the community as ice skating. MCO will also allow us to take advantage of different combos and perform different movesets and animations depending on how many normal and how many power attacks we use. Weapon-specific animations are now a feature for all actors, meaning that the movesets for a greatsword will be different for battle axes. But most importantly of all, we will take advantage of a framework that the entire community uses as a main base when implementing their movesets in the game, whether by importing them from a different game or creating custom ones. To summarize, why MCO and what do we get from it? We get a modern animation framework that connects weapon swings to actors' movement and adds attack commitment, almost identical to how most modern RPGs do it. A fully fledged combo system to perform unique attacks with, weapon-specific animations for all actors in the game, and the biggest advantage being that it's a framework considered a foundational element for all animators in the community that create or import movesets for us to use. Thank you to Raid for sponsoring this video, a well-established cross-platform hero collecting RPG with over 4 million users, 800 champions, and consistent monthly updates. Raid is celebrating the Spring Hunt event, where you have a chance in winning a gaming console plus 10k value of Amazon gift cards. Simply download Raid using my link or the QR code, head to springhunt.plarium.com, enter your Raid ID, and start searching for items. There are also community weeks now, multiple activities for all players, and a 14-day loyalty program that gives you a free legendary Chronicle Eidolon. This top-tier support hero can be obtained just by logging in for 7 days between April 11th and July 8th. For me, Raid is the most fun due to its hero collecting element. Such a large roster of unique champions allows for endless combos and synergies, meaning that no team composition is the same. The more champs you collect, the more fun the team comps you can assemble, creating a diverse experience. So make sure to click the link in the description or scan the QR code to get Epic Champion Teriel from High Elves, a hero with a large arsenal of high-power debuffs. Reaching level 25 will grant you Epic Rector Drath, a super strong support you definitely want in your collection. And after you download the game via my link, use the promo code SPRINGHUNT24 to get additional silver and more. Lastly, join my clan Black Rose Alliance, as I'm looking to expand the roster of players willing to team up. Thank you to Raid for being a long-standing supporter of the channel. Now that we talked about why, let's get MCO set up. We will need OAR, a framework that replaces animations depending on conditions, AMR, a plugin that expands animation limitations of the engine, and Payload Interpreter, another plugin that allows for spellcasts mid-movesets. Keep in mind, this same installation principle applies for BFCO if you opt into using it instead. Install all 3 plugins the same way you would any other mod, and of course, don't forget to activate. Make sure to have a Dressed library installed beforehand, as all 3 mods need it. Next, go to MCO link provided below, scroll down and find the latest version of the files. Download it and drag the zip file into the Downloads tab of your mod manager. Installation menu will pop up, name the files accordingly, and then select Distar Experience as well as Elder Souls Locomotion. Click Install, and once again, don't forget to activate the mod. The mod is now active, however, since these frameworks come with behavior files, we will need to generate them using either Nemesis or Pandora. I have a guide on how to get Nemesis set up in 2 minutes, with Pandora coming soon. Open the animation framework, tick Attack Distar Experience and Payload Interpreter boxes, and Update Engine. Generate files by launching the framework, and that's it. For showcase purposes, let's install a moveset, and to fit the theme of this waifu katana character I have here, we'll go with the Katana moveset. Install it as you would any other mod, name it accordingly, and then activate. You're not required to generate the behavior files, and the animations for Ebony Blade and Dragon Bane will turn from chaotic weapon swings to something more resembling a modern RPG. Also, if you're using the latest versions of the game, make sure to install MCO support for it to function properly. And that's it, MCO is now fully up and running, and it's a good idea to go in-game and test everything out. It's also worth mentioning that as the development cycle of BFCO continues, it might eventually replace MCO as a whole, and if that ever happens, I will update the overhaul accordingly. Overhauling general third-person combat gameplay will be done by one of the greatest mods for this element of the game, True Directional Movement. This mod unlocks character's motion by enabling directional movement, introduces a custom target lock component with an animated reticle, head tracking that subtly follows camera's direction, projectile support during target lock, all done entirely through SKSE. The mod's installation is pretty simple: activate as you would any other mod, run animation framework, tick appropriate boxes, and generate behavior files. True Directional Movement is also considered a foundational component for any combat setup, as it separates the player character from the camera and allows for freedom of movement. It greatly complements MCO and its movesets by assisting with positioning and target acquisition. This overhaul will utilize vanilla-style drawn movement, retaining the features of TDM, while also being able to face forward while dodging, even without the target lock. All other settings that mod offers are entirely optional. I have covered this mod a few times in the past, so going into great detail is unnecessary, but it's still considered an absolute must-have for all setups, regardless of your playstyle. Time to add weapon colliders to attacks performed by all actors in the world space, and achieve this by installing personally one of the most favorite mods ever made: Precision. We have to go in detail, as this combat overhaul heavily adjusts the features introduced by this mod, by changing the slider values for majority of them to achieve the desired outcome. So let's start with weapon trails, a purely visual feature that adds visible trails to all weapon attacks, entirely controlled by the user. On top of that, you can also add different textures to it, to achieve transparent or colored appearance. These are the values that this overhaul uses while opting for transparent textures. One of the most important parts of Precision as a mod are its physics-based features. Every attack will now be physically accurate, as a collider is being created for a given duration and attached to the weapon, which then collides with other actors in the world space with precision. Next, the mod also allows for lower body iframes during jumping, which enables the player to perform cool evasive maneuvers and avoid weapon collision by pressing the jump hotkey. There are also hit-stop and camera shake features that this overhaul heavily adjusts, which keeps them noticeable enough to provide satisfying time slow and a camera shake during hits, but subdued enough to not disrupt regular gameplay. When paired up with flashy weapon trails, weapon collisions feel impactful and provide satisfying feedback with each strike. Due to the way these weapon colliders are implemented, they will collide with everything they physically touch, so logically another feature of the mod are sweeping attacks, where you can hit multiple targets in one swing. I like to lower this value from unlimited to 3 without, and 5 with a perk. Precision also comes with hit-based reaction for many actors in the world space, but this overhaul keeps those values at the minimum, mainly because of a Poise and a Stagger system we will add later, and stacking them with the Precision's hit reactions can look odd in some scenarios. Lastly, Precision offers recoil to attacks intended to punish bad positioning. I dislike this feature in Elden Ring, and I hate it even more here. Spare yourself the headache and disable it, as Skyrim interior cells are not designed with this feature in mind. When installing, choose TK Dodge in an installation menu, activate, and once again, tick appropriate box and run animation framework. Let's talk dodging. The choices are TK Dodge, a very customizable dodge mod that requires a bit of a setup but offers variety of dodge animations, and DMCO, a behavioral dodge mod that allows for both step dodge and a dodge roll depending on the key input. Precision's installation menu choice made it obvious which dodge mod this overhaul uses, mainly because its incredible responsiveness, a variety of dodge animations made for TK Dodge specifically, and also because it offers first-person dodge as well. Let's set it up. Download TK Dodge SC and only keep the meshes folder as you can see in the background. Then install TK Dodge RE normally as you would any other mod. Activate both, and as a standard by this point, open up the animation framework, scroll down, find TK Dodge box, tick it, and run the framework. I personally use dynamic dodge for heavy armor themed characters and 2B dodge for acrobatic ones. There's another cool advantage of TK Dodge. For example, I have one dodge animation set up when wielding an axe, and a completely different one when wielding a battle axe. As far as balancing is concerned, this overhaul sets 20 stamina cost per dodge and 0.3 second iframe duration. Now is the time to completely overhaul resource management for both player and other actors in the world space, while also introducing value to well-timed action input. We will of course achieve this with Valhalla Combat, which this overhaul also heavily adjusts. Firstly, Valhalla introduces stamina cost to all light attacks, discouraging spammy gameplay. In return, however, the stamina regeneration for all actors has been increased 5 times. Additionally, every successful light attack will now regen percentage-based stamina amount. Timed parries and blocks have been introduced, so raised defenses just before hits land are rewarded with deflection and stamina return. Same goes for arrows, using magicka as a primary resource to deflect them back. Poise meter is introduced, and when broken, opens up actors for execution. Due to how rewarding the timed parry is, this combat overhaul lowers the time window to perform a parry to 0.1 seconds. In return, the timed block has been increased to 1/3 of a second. The idea is to encourage timed input, as you can see on the keyboard overlay. Parrying an attack is incredibly rewarding, and even if you're under a lot of pressure, you can turn a tide of a battle to your favor with a single timed parry, since it completely refills your stamina. So, making that timed window narrow is appropriate. As far as stamina values are concerned, they're mostly fine, however, you might want to lower regen rate to 3 if you run perk and racial overhauls. The idea is to pair Valhalla with a Stagger mod we will add later. This will make timed parry and blocks your essential defenses, as mindlessly holding a block key will not defend against power attacks, encouraging you to learn when to raise your defenses. Before we add more combat changes, let's make the action input a little bit easier. More importantly, add an ability to perform power attacks with a separate hotkey instead of holding the left click. One-click power attack is the mod, and the setup is a bit tricky, but I'll walk you through it. First, make sure to have SkyUI and MCM Helper, and then install dual-wheel parrying and one-click power attack. The installation process is the same as any other mod, and like always, do not forget to activate. Next, go in-game and open one-click power attack MCM. Set the power attack, in my case right-click, set a modifier key, and tick modifier only on first attack. Disable block during attack. Change the left-hand hotkey to be anything else other than a right-click. Then enter the MCM menu for dual-wheel pairing and set a hotkey of your preference. Match it in Valhalla's MCM, and that's it. With these steps, we have essentially separated blocking action away from a right hand, transferring it to a mod, while not messing up the left-hand hotkey in the process. What we achieve is a much more user-friendly power attack input, and will not have to worry about key maps overlapping. Speaking of blocking, let's add recently showcased Maxu block overhaul. This edition is completely behavioral, and it basically introduces recoil animations every time an actor blocks an incoming hit. Animations are varied, and they cycle between light recoils to complete displacement animations. When paired up with dynamic block hit, introduces some cinematic-looking blocking animations that play based on stamina or how forceful the attack was. It might seem that this mod is incompatible with Valhalla Combat, but you don't have to worry about that as they do completely separate things. In fact, they play alongside each other extremely well, and all animations added by Maxu blocking will also be performed during time block and time parries. This results in very satisfying gameplay with potent feedback in forms of camera shakes, blocking animations, and sound effects, all provided by Precision, Maxu blocking, and Valhalla in unison. Let's add a mod that many will consider controversial, mainly due to how old it is, but most likely because majority have forgotten about its existence. The mod is called Mortal Enemies. Now, I can already hear some veterans of the community questioning this choice, but stay with me and allow me to demonstrate. Here's an enemy power attack without mortal enemies. And here's that same power attack with mortal enemies. So yeah, apparently even with all the mods we added, enemy AI still has a baked-in turn rate, forcing them to aggressively face the player at all costs, which in some instances looks very odd. Here's a side-by-side comparison. And the most egregious example will be sprinting attacks. I mean, look at that, that just looks silly. Mortal Enemies adjusts that insane turn rate to a reasonable amount. And I would use this chance to ask the animators of the community to consider including sprinting attacks from a perk in their movesets. I know Creme Brulee does this, as you can see in the footage, and it would be nice to make this a standard, so NPCs that use the perk would stop using vanilla attacks. But yeah, other than that, Mortal Enemies is straightforward, plug and play, and honestly hasn't left my mod list ever since Impa Sekiro Overhaul. Alright, time for us to add Elden Stagger, a plugin that comes as a part of Elden Arts. With this plugin, predators and large creatures will pose a great threat by knocking down the player, launching them in the air, or simply flattening them into the ground. This is purely based on specific attacks, so the more you fight these creatures, the more you will learn which specific attacks pose the greatest threat, thus learning to properly manage defenses provided by previous mods. To support this plugin, we will add Modern Stagger Lock, a behavioral mod that adds stagger to both light and power attacks, heavily punishing improperly managed defenses and dodges. This is one of those picks that many will dislike, but like anything in this overhaul, it is completely optional. The installation is the same as most mods added today. Add to Mod Manager, activate, open the animation framework, find appropriate boxes to tick, and generate behavior files. Next, we will add Scar, a mod that teaches all humanoid AI to utilize all MCO attacks and apply heavy pressure on the player. Keep in mind that Scar is only necessary for MCO, as BFCO framework does not need it. Throughout this video, you probably noticed heads flying off left and right, and that's because of a simple beheading mod. Probably one of the most seamless gore mods ever made, implemented extremely well and allowing for simple beheading as long as you strike upper parts of your enemies. For a gore caused by magic, I still use Frozen Electrocuted Combustion. Covered previously on this channel, it allows for a brutal dismemberment using shock attacks, freezing enemies in place with ice and smoldering them with fire, all presented in amazing looking aftermath effects. Now, what about the first person? I already made a video about it recently and it's still up to date. The question is whether you can use the two overhauls together. Yes, with MCO first person patch, you can now perform frontal, side and back power attacks in first person while using MCO. The only obvious drawback is that the two perspectives will not match, but if you don't care about that and you just want to utilize best of both worlds and swap perspectives depending on your mood, with this patch you can now do so free of any incompatibilities. As far as archery is concerned, bow rapid combo needs to be mentioned. I've covered this mod in detail 2 videos ago, and it changes archery gameplay by allowing the player to perform cool acrobatic attacks inspired by Ranger class from Black Desert Online. Note that most attacks by this mod will be done with left-hand hotkey, which we changed in our previous one-click power attack segment. The camera used in this video is my own SmoothCam preset Synergy. This preset was originally inspired by Hellblade, especially for more close-up angles. But the preset is highly modular and most gameplay recorded here used 4 zoom-out increments. and all sliders have been individually adjusted to cover all gameplay elements. If you want to replicate the entire combat setup, including a mod list and a plugin order, that will be on my Discord server. The reason I'm doing it this way is because every time I want to make updates, for example potentially swapping from Nemesis to Pandora, or from MCO to BFCO, I can simply do it in one place without having to make a new video. Also, being present on a Discord server enables us to assist you should you find yourself encountering issues. Other than that, make sure to endorse the authors whose mods we showcase today, and consider subscribing if you like modding content. If you want to support me, links are in the description, Patreon, Twitter, but I'll cut to rambling for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.